Okay, good luck to all. We're up to Kuf Zion Amid Beis. We're up to Kuf Zion Amid Beis. Right before it gets wide, two lines up. Amar Yehuda Rav Ada Mushacha. Now Rashi tells us he measured land. In the English vernacular, he was a surveyor. He was a surveyor, and he was very, very, I guess, very accurate. Anyway, so he told him the following. Rabbi Yehuda told Rav Ada the Mushacha, like tizalzel b'mishchasa. Be very careful when you go ahead and measure land. Why? It seems to be a very, very expensive crop is garden saffron, and any little piece of land is rife to go ahead and plant that. So when you're going ahead and creating parcels of land, be very careful in your measurements because each measurement is roy for this kurkuma rishka. However, Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Rav Ada Mishka, Dal and Amis the Anigra, the 4 Amis by the bank of an irrigation canal, Zilzilbuhu. You don't have to be so accurate because no person is going to plant there, because if you do plant there, it's going to cause the embankment to fall in. So you don't have to be so exact over there. You have a lot of leeway. That's by a private canal. The Anahara, if it's speaking about the public river, you don't even have to go ahead and measure that at all. You can estimate it without a measurement because no one's since it's public property, no one's planting over there. Rabbi Yehuda Tamei, Rabbi Yehuda, Arba Amista Nigra Lebenei Nigra. This goes to private property. Danahara the Kolyama was common property to all. Makas Ravami made the following hachraza. Now it seems to be that they used to go ahead. I still remember this. They used on a small body of water. They would go ahead and have people on the sides with ropes, and they would go ahead and they would pull it along. They would pull the road along using these ropes. So under discussion is if there's a trees on the sides of the river that is stopping this person to go ahead and pull, these people pulling, how much can you expect the person to cut? How much can you expect the person to cut? So Machras Arami, Meloy Kisvei Nagade, the width of the shoulders of these people who would the schleppers or the ropers, betray every Nahara on the 2 sides of the river. So you can clear the trees. You can clear the trees because they need access to be able to pull they're walking along with the boat and they're pulling these ropes and they need access. Rav Nassan Bar Hoshaya cuts Shitza Amasa. He would go ahead and he would cut down 16 amis by the river. This week's parsha, Rishus Harabim Mismad is 16 amis. We learned that from the Agalos of the Levium. Asu alai b'nei Mashrunya dafnua, and the people of Mashrunya, they came and they started fighting with him because he cut down too much. He cut down the trees. You don't have to cut down too much. Husava Rishus Harabim. Rav Nassan held it's no different than a Rishus Harabim, which is 16 amos. V'lohi hasabin and kule. High idea by Rishus Harabim, since they're multiple people and there are many wagons side by side, you need 16 amos. The whole reason you need here is to go ahead and pull the ropes. And it's enough the width of the men who are schlepping the ropes. It's enough their shoulder width. Rabbi Rav Huna, Rabbi Baruch Huna, he had a forest on the sides of the river. So Amalei, the schleppers told him, Nikutz Mar, go ahead and cut down the trees. So Amalahu, let the person who owns the tree, the forest in front of me, and the person who owns the forest in back of me cut their trees, and then I'm going to cut my trees. But if I cut my trees, it's not going to be any help because the person who owns that, if he doesn't cut the trees, you won't be able to get through. So how can you expect them to act first? Search within yourself and then search. What does it mean? First, you do the right thing for yourself, and then you do the right thing for others. So you, Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, should go ahead and cut your trees. Says Gemara, Rabbi Huna had a different cheshbon. Hasam Abba debe Parzik Rupila Habe. The forests that were on top of him and back of him, they were owned by Parzik, who was the governor. If he'll cut his, then I'll cut mine. Beloy kaitzi, my ekots. If he doesn't cut his, why should I bother cutting mine? If you're going to go ahead and schlep your ropes, mistaigalahu, they'll walk over there. Beloy mistaigalahu, and you won't be able to walk over there. The bottom line is you won't be able to get through. So anyway, Rabbi Rav Chana Havi Ka'ozl Ba'arava. Rabbi Bar Nachman, be careful names. The other one was Rabbi Bar Huna. This is Rabbi Bar Nachman, and names count over here. Havi Ka'ozli Ba'arba, he was going on the boat. Chazi hu Abba de Koya Gud in Nahara, he saw this forest that was on the other side, and he couldn't get, the guys couldn't schlep him through. So Amalahu, the man, he asked the schleppers, who is the forest belong to? Amalei, the Rabbi Rav Huna, belongs to Rabbi Rav Huna. So Amar Rabbi Rav Nachman, he told him, Yara Sorim Vasagonim Paisa Bimal Hazer Rishaina. Said that the pasuk is discussing when Ezra came back to Eretz Yisrael, he found people intermarried. He said that they were the heads. They were the first people doing things wrong. So too over here, Rabbi Rav Huna, who was a big head Talmud Chacham, he's doing something wrong by not cutting it down. So Rabbi Rav Nachman told him cut down the trees, and so they cut down the trees. Now, Amar Rabbi Rav Huna, Ashkei the Kayas, when Rabbi Rav Huna found that his trees have been cut down, Amar, he said, Man Kaitse, who cut them down? Pakets Anpe, his branches should be cut down. The one who cut them down, his branches should be cut down. Amr, they say, Kula Sheni, the Rabbi Rav Huna, all the years that Rabbi Rav Huna was alive, like Chaim Le Zara Le Rabbi Rav Nachman, none of Rabbi Rav Nachman, of course, of the curse of Rabbi Rav Nachman, they didn't live. Now the Ein Yaakov says that this wasn't a curse. He says he cut down fruit-bearing trees. He cut down fruit-bearing trees, and we saw the Gemara guys, fellas, in Baba Kama Daf Tzadik Aleph. The Gemara said over there that someone who cuts down trees, right, those trees will have his children cut down. So he wasn't cursing him, but he was saying, Rabbi Rav Huna was saying the inevitable. He was saying the inevitable, what's going to happen. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hakol Igli Gapel. When it comes to going ahead and buying and building a gate for the city, for the security of the city, then you collect what Hakol from everybody. But Philimi asked me, even from your Simon, Al Rabbana, but the Chachamim, they don't have to go ahead and contribute. My timer, Rabbana the Chacham, they have the protection of Torah, and they don't have to go ahead and need the wall. However, the carry the pasa, if they're going ahead and digging wells for water, then I feel the Rabbanan have to contribute. The way I'm learning that the Rabbanan have to contribute, Ella, the way nafka be'ochlusa, is that the people themselves are hiring other people and they're not going out to work, doing the work. And aval lachluza, if the people going out to physically themselves dig, then loy. We can't expect the chachamim to go ahead and physically dig the wells. The Rabbanan lav b'nei meifik b'chluza. They're not into performing this type of work. Okay. Rav Yehuda, the Kayu Denahara, digging a river to clear the river. The river got fashed up with different sediment and stones, and the river got fashed up. And again, it's running at an angle. Tatoy Messiah Eloi. If it gets fashed up, that let's say up the river at a certain area, the people below have to help the people above. But Eloi, if below it gets stuffed, Loi Messiah Tatoy, they don't have to go ahead and help the ones below. Now, why do the ones below have to help the ones on top? Because they need the water, and if it's not coming down, why do the ones on top not have to? If it gets fashtuped on the bottom, it's because fashtuped on the bottom they don't have any water on top. It's they want water. They want water. They feel it's going to dry up. So if the water is below, it's not helping them at all. They want the water to flow. So it's not going to be of help. Says the Gemara, when it comes to carrying away schmutzy water that's from the rain, then the people on top, they have to help the people on the bottom, while the people on the bottom don't have to help the people on the top. Tanya Nami Hafi, they're going to bring a riot to this. You have 5 gardens, and they're supplied water from one source, and the water is flowing along. And the water source, the fountain stops. So kulam etaknes and let's say on top it gets fashtupt. So everyone's going to come from the bottom. The bottom people help the top because they need the water to come down. So nimsa tachtoinim etakenes and kulo. The one that's lowest, he will have to go ahead and help whatever level it gets stuffed up at. He's going to have to help because he needs the water. However, if the bottom one is fashtupt by him, then he has to help himself, and the other ones don't have to help him. V'chein chamesh chatzeros, you have 5 courtyards. You have this rainwater, which is schmutz, is going into a ditch. And the ditch gets what? Vashtub. Everyone helps the one below because they don't want it backing up. The one on top, he's going to help everyone because it's going to back up and he doesn't need it backing up. But what? It's vashtub on top. The guys in the bottom don't want it, so the guy on top, he's alone when it comes to vashtubing. Amashmul, Haiman the Achsik Biraksa Dinahara, a person who goes ahead and he chaps a land by Raksa Dinahara. So you need a little hakdama over here. Look at Rashi, fellas. 2 lines long when it gets wide. Haiman the Achsik Biraksa Dinahara. Says Rashi. Bishani HaPrasiyim, in the years of the Persians, Karko Mufkar Lechol HaKoidim, Lahachsik Boy, Ulafroya Lamelech Haska. If someone didn't pay their taxes, anyone would, it was hefker, and anyone could come along and take it to pay the tax. So anyone, it's finders keepers. It's the first person who gets there, he's going to be able to keep it. The humashal karka. And if one person comes and he's machzik by the river edge, the place where the sfinas come to the port, you need a lot of place, to go ahead and unload the cargo from the ships, and to load the cargo. So you need, this area should be for you need like the longshoremen. You need a place to go ahead and load and unload. And this person, again, he comes along, he's machzik it, he's going to use it for a field or for his house. Now he's entitled to it because that's the Persian law. So what's the Jewish law with that? So says the Gemara, Haiman de machzik biraksa dinahara, this person who goes ahead what? And he's machzik by the banks of the river. Chatzifa havi, the guy is a mechutzif, and saluki le, but we can't take him away from his property. The idna the kokosvi parsoi, however, that the Persians, they made this following law, that anyone who chaps a field along the river, kani lacha ad meloit savori susyamaya, he's kind of it up until where the water reaches the neck of a horse. Saluki nami misalkina lo able to misalik. Rashi explains that the person who's going to go ahead and chap this area that it goes into the water is going to build a fence over here on this side. It's going to build a fence on this side and to keep people away. If a person's machzik in here, we go ahead and get rid of him. That's the way Rashi learns. Taisus has a different pshat. We'll keep with Rashi. Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, Haima de ma'asik beini achi ubeini shutafri. So you have 2 brothers or 2 shutfin, and there's field 1 and 3, and 2 becomes available because the person that pays taxes comes along with another person and chaps that. So chatzifa have always looking like misalkinanly. In other words, we're going to see in a second hakdamba the halacha of dini de bar mitzvah. It's always good for a person to have 2 fields next to each other, and this person, you have shutfin, they rather have a 1, 2, and 3, and brothers 1, 2, and 3, rather than 1, 3, and 2 is owned by somebody else. So that person is a mechutzah for doing it. However, once he did it, we don't take him off. Rav Nachman Amar, Nami Misalkinan, we take him off. Okay. However, if it's a case of a bar mitzvah, then loy misalkinan lay. So if you go ahead and have a person who, a separate case, he has a field, and a field becomes available next to him, and the guy chaps it. One guy lives in Passaic, and the guy lives in Brooklyn, and the field in Brooklyn, the guy in Passaic chaps the field in Brooklyn, where the guy next to him wants that field. Then says Rav Nachman, you can't take him off. And Daf Yomi, I feel mishum dina bar mitzvah misalkina lei dina bar mitzvah, we take him off. Mishum shenemar vasisa yashav atoy b'nei Hashem. You should do the right thing. So we're going to now, for the rest of the daf, guys, we're going to hack dina bar mitzvah. So let's see exactly what dina bar mitzvah is. You can see this. Simon Kufayin. Hey, you got it? Okay, this is from the Sefer Aruch HaShulchan. Lenny, This is the Sefer Aruch HaShulchan, and this is his in Choshen Mishpat Siman Kufayin Hey, and this is Derech Hakdama. Mitzvahs Chachomim. There's a mitzvah the Rabbanan Dikadin. Kisha Echad Moiche Karka Obayas. When a person goes ahead and sells land or a house, a chanus or a store, Imam Mitzarim, if the people who border, let's stay with the field. You have a person that borders that field. He wants to acquire it. Who koidim l'chol adam? He comes before anyone. In other words, he comes before, right? Even if another person gives, we're going to see he comes first. And the pasuk is Vasisa Yashavatov, do the right thing, Bnei Hashem. Shechavitz Hashem Yisbarach, Shebnei Adam Yasu Zeh Im Zeh, Yashavatov. Because Baruch Hu wants people to be Yashu with each other. He wants the world to be in peace, not machloikis. He wants the world to be toiv. Ve'en lecha Yasha b'toiv mizeh. And there's nothing better and more Yasha than allowing a person who has one property to have another property next to it. Kimin shamoicha ein le hezek. This one who sells it has no hezek. In other words, he's selling it side by side. So what difference does it mean if he sells it to the guy next to him or a guy from Pesach? There's no difference. He can sell it to anybody. If the moicha doesn't take a loss. Now, obviously, guys, if the guy in Pesach is going to give more money, we're not talking about that case. We're talking about all things being equal. But all things being equal, the person who borders the field comes first. Listen to this. This is what I want this for. The Chachamim strengthened Lashon Ali strengthened this din. Sha'af imacha le'acha. The guy he sold it already to the other person. Ein michirasei klum. It doesn't count. V'tzorech litna lebala meitzar, and you have to give it to the bala meitzar. So even if you signed on the dotted line a shtar, give the guy sold it to the guy in Pesach. If this guy next door wants the field, then the sale to the guy in Pesach is null and void. More than that, listen to this. The guy in Pesach who bought it, nechshav kishlucha shel hamitzarin. He is like the shliach and the guy in Brooklyn next door. L'chol davar. The eidei hakinyan shel lokeach. The eidim on the shtar lokeach. Yichtavu shtar b'shem hamitzarim. They wrote a shtar in the name of the guy in Brooklyn. They tzarich kinyan acha. You don't need another kinyan. V'im hukru. If the field goes up in price, achakach ain't tzarich litein rak kafi shekana. The Baal of the Metzia only gives, if the field is worth $5,000 and you bought it for 1,000, he only gives you 1,000. In Huzlu, and if it was worth 5 and it goes down to 1, he takes the loss. Has to give you 5. So the side of the Indian by Mitzvah fellas is so strong that not only does he get first dibs to, not only guys that he gets first dibs to buy it, even if the other person bought it and the Baal Metzar wants it, the person who bought it is considered the shliach of the Baal Metzar, and the deal is done, and he owns it. You hear this chiddush nifla, chiddush nifla. So can you imagine? He buys the field, and all of a sudden there is a real estate boom, and it goes up by thousands and thousands of dollars. The Baal Metzar, when he gives the money to Leikeach, he only gives him b'shatz the kinyan of Leikeach. Why? Because it's like he was a shaliach to buy the field. It's unbelievable. So, it's when you just see the word Didi by Mitzvah, you say, oh, it means the next guy gets first dibs. No, it's much more than that. This is the main sugi and shas of Didi by Mitzvah. We're going to go through. So again, just to summarize, the person who owns the field next to another person, if he wants the field, he's going to get it. Provided, all things being equal, that, listen to this, that the moicha doesn't take a loss. If the guy selling the field is going to take a loss, or even if it's a pain in the neck, then we'll give it to the lekeach. From now on, the lekeach guy is the guy from Pesach. We're in Brooklyn. The guy's in Passaic. It's going to make things easier. So again, we're going to see that there was a lot of pitchifkis to this halacha. In other words, Vasisa Yashiv Toiv is where there's nothing, everything is equal. Once there's, for example, you're not sure that the Bal Metzar is going to be able to come up with the money, the guy in Passaic. Then there's no dinner to my mitzvah. Because, listen, the Mike is also entitled to this money, right? There's no guarantee. So we're going to see a whole Gemara, but this is just the Hakdama, and the Yisoid of Shlichus is very important. We'll view the guy in Passaic as the Shlich of the guy in Brooklyn. Fascinating idea. Okay, let's begin. Asa Imlach Bey. Let's say the following: the guy in Passaic, he comes to the guy in Brooklyn, the guy in Brooklyn, he says to him, Amalei, Ezel Isvin, can I go buy the field? Well, Amalei is Ilzav, and the guy in Brooklyn says, you know what? You buy the field. Go ahead. Question. Do they have to have a Kinyan Suda? Do they have to, in other words, does the guy in Passaic have to go ahead and make a Kinyan to make sure that, in other words, take off the din of Balmates of Dini Dar Mitzvah? No, we established the din, right? The guy in Brooklyn's got all rights there. So, in other words, he owns the field in a sense. And he wants to know, I'm in Passaic, I want to buy the field in Brooklyn. Do you give me the right? Listen, yeah, absolutely, I'm giving you the right. You have to make a kinyan, says the Gemara. Ravina Omar, you don't have to make a kinyan. Nadoi says, you have to make a kinyan. And you know what? The Hilchah said, you have to make a kinyan. And now if you don't make a kinyan, even though he told you could buy it, if you do buy it, it reverts to the guy in Brooklyn. You're a shliach. Remember, it's Kishmag Akdama. Okay? So Hashta, the Amit, Sorach Lemiknemi now that you told me that the guy in Brooklyn has to make a kinyan, the guy in Passaic has to make a kinyan in Brooklyn to get there. Eloi Konemine, if they don't make a kinyan, Iker, if it goes up in price, Vizul or goes down in price, Bershusei, it's in the Rishus of the fellow in Brooklyn. Chiddush Nifla, guys. Because why? You know the reason. Because of shlichus, like he did a shlichus. Now, Zovim b'meya, if the person in Passaic bought it for 100, the Shavim musin, and it's worth 200. Okay, so he got a deal. Now, how much does the guy in Brooklyn have to pay the guy in Passaic? Does he pay him 200 or 100? So Chazina. If the Meicha would have given a discount to everybody, including the guy in Brooklyn, Yavle Meya B'Shakalei, gives him 100 and you're good. However, the Eloi, if he wouldn't go ahead and give him a discount, in other words, he's only discounting this especially to the guy in Passaic, then Yavle mustn't B'Shakalei. Then the guy in Brooklyn has to give the guy in Passaic 200 tzuz. Conversely, the opposite way. Zovim b'masnin v'shavim b'meya. If the guy in Passaic bought the land for 200 and it was only worth 100, Savamina, so the Bnei Yeshiva held Matzi Amalei that the guy in Brooklyn can say the Tkune Shadrich v'loy lavusi. I sent you to go ahead and help me, not to go ahead and mess me up. Guys, you see it's in the Shlichus? Isn't that interesting lesson, guys? He never told him anything. He never said, I made him a shliach, but the taina is the taina of a shliach. In other words, you bought the land and you knew that what? That I'm a Metzia, and you knew that I have first dibs, and you knew that if I'm going to go ahead and say, I want this, I get it. So it's considered that when you bought it for 200 when it's only worth 100, I'm not going to have to pay you what? I'm not going to have to pay you 200. I'm only have to pay you 100 because I sent you to go ahead and for my good, not for my bad. However, he argues, and if you remember from our days in Azov, there's no din of what? Of Aina, of overcharging a sixth when it comes to land, right? Because it's not a davar metaltal. Right? The din of Aina is only by something that's not giving me yad liyad. It's only something metaltalim that goes back and forth. It's not karka. Okay, so now, guys, we just get a bunch of dinim of dinim by mitzvah. Zavan griva the ara b'mitzvah nechsei. So this the person went ahead and he sold a griva, a piece of land in the middle of his land. So this is our this is what Harold wanted to see. Harold, you see that? Okay, I should make it a little smaller, but I don't have to make it smaller. You're good. He buys this land over here. He buys this land over here. Now, let's say this is the Meicha, he's selling this land. He's selling this land, one or two reasons. One, he needs the money, and this land is different than this land. This is very cheap land, or it's very expensive land, and this is kind of middle land. So if it's cheaper or more expensive, then it's a good sale. However, if it's the exact same land, then we have, listen to this, guys. The guy who bought this land wants to make a harama. Here's really what he wants. He wants this land. He wants to get here to get here. So watch. These guys over here in the gray area, they're bar mitzvah over here, correct? They have a din of bar mitzvah over here. So if he'd want to sell his fields, these guys would have first dibs. Why is this guy over here buying this land? That he should become the bar mitzvah over here. So he's doing it for a trick. So therefore, we will consider the sale not a sale. Says the Gemara. Something like Griva the Arab and Mitmitz and Nechsei, Chazina. If it's what? Different land, then it's either better or worse. Zvina, it's a good sale on the base. But if it's not, it's the exact same land, Arumi Kama Arim. And the person who bought this land is making a trick. What he wants to do is get here to create a dinner by mitzvah over here to get this field before these guys get this field. That's that picture. I found it helpful. So I shared it with you. Matana, less pay mishum dinner by mitzvah. If someone goes ahead and gives away a field to somebody else, no, there's no dinner by mitzvah. The person, can't have a taina that he gave it as a matana. However, if the Gebal Matana said he's giving to us a matana, but guess what? If it's taken away from you, I'll make it up. Then it has a din of mechira, and you would have a din of mitzvah. Person sells all his fields. Again, this is all din of mitzvah. Person has a lot of property. He sells all his fields, and there's on this field there happens to be a guy in Brooklyn, and the guy who bought all his fields is in Passaic. So then, in this case, there's not going to be a dinner by mitzvah. Why? Because let's say the guy in Brooklyn will have trouble getting the money together. The guy in Passaic is going to say, listen, I want a deal on all the property. I bought you have 10 pieces of land in different places. I bought all of them. I'm going to get the 10th land. Even though there's the Brooklyn's dinner by mitzvah, it doesn't make a difference. Why? Because the Meicha may say, 1 second, if you take all the land, great. If you don't, you're not getting it. So in other words, this is an example of what? Where the Lekeach and Pseic, right, it's not Yasha to him. Or it's not Yasha to the Meicha. So in that case, we won't say the dinner by mitzvah. We won't say that the guy in next to him in Brooklyn gets first dibs. Why? Because there's circumstances, the words extenuating circumstances, right? To keep it by him. Again, he wants to allow the deal to go through. So therefore, we won't say the dinner by mitzvah. So less by dinner mitzvah. If the original owner wants it back, also the Baal Rishon wants it back, then they say the Meiri says the Lekeach who bought it was like just holding on to him for that time. It's like a Metzia getting back to him, less but Mishnah didn't have mitzvah. So again, we're getting all the cases where even though the Chachamim made the din of the Bar Mitzvah, these are exceptions to the rule. These are exceptions to the rule, and each one, as I speak out, the reason as we go along the way. Zovin me'akum, if a person buys a field from a guy, you buy a field from a guy, so if it's Zovin le'akum, or you sell a field to a guy, less boy mishum dina de bar mitzvah. There's no dinner of bar mitzvah. In other words, the guy in Brooklyn, right, had a guy living next to him. There was a guy living next to him, right? And now he sells it to the guy in Passaic. That person in Brooklyn doesn't have a taina. Why? he should be happy to get rid of the guy. He should be happy to get rid of the guy. So therefore, there's no dinner by mitzvah. Conversely, if the guy buys it, you're not going to. The guy's not going to. It's no sisha v'yashva by the guy. Zavim meyakum. If you go ahead and buy from the guy the amalei, so the guy in Pasaya can say to the guy in Brooklyn, I read Avreche Lach Metzia. I went ahead and I mamish literally chased away a lion. Zavim la'akum. But if he sold it to an akum, then akam vade lav bar vasis v'yashva taifu. As we said, the akam's not going to. He has no dinner vasis v'yashva taif. However, the guy who sold it to him, who sold it to the guy, shemuti vadim shamtina le. We're going to put him in chayrim. Adam mekabel kol einsei the aslei machmasei. Until he goes ahead as a makabel, all the einsin that's going to happen as a result of the guy being there. Look at this little taisus, but this is important. Mishamtina le adam makabel. Dafka sheyisrael roitzel likach bedamim shenasana akam. That's dafka if another person wants to give equal price. In other words, you're only going to go ahead and put him in chayrim for selling to a guy when the guy gives you the best, doesn't give you the best price. If the guy is giving you the best price, then we say, listen. Well, it happens all the time, right? It's not even dinner by mitzvah in Jewish neighborhoods where people sell to goyim, but it's not a dinner by mitzvah. It is what it is. Okay. Maita. Mashkanta, a person's holding on to a mashkin, and now the leiv is going to sell it. Less by mishum dinner by mitzvah. There's no dinner by mitzvah. In other words, the person who is the mashkin gets first dibs. Guy in Passaic is holding a mashkin. Guys, guy in Passaic is holding the mashkin of the land in Brooklyn. He gets first dibs. It's close by, says the Gemara. The Amar of Ashi, Omuli Sabi the Masa Machasya, the Sabi Masa Machasya told me, my mashkanta, what's the Lashon mashkanta? The Shchuna Gabe. It's you live in it. So you're living in it. My nafkamina, but the mitzvah. So since you're living in it, it's considered yours already. Memela, it's the guy in Passaic, in this case, holding on to the mashkin of the land next to the guy in Brooklyn. It's like he's living in there, and therefore he has to dinner by mitzvah the same way as dinner as the guy in Brooklyn. Limcha barachik v'ligal b'karav. He wants to go ahead. Now the meicher, he wants to go ahead and sell a land that's a distance away, and he wants to buy something closer. Good. So he's selling this land to a guy in Passaic, and because he wants to buy a land closer, and Birov v'ligal b'yafa, he wants to sell a lousy property to get a better property. Less be mishum dina d'ba mitzvah. There's no dina d'ba mitzvah. In other words, he may have to wait. In other words, guys, what's the svara of the meicher selling it to this guy? Guys, what's the svara dina d'ba mitzvah? Sell to the guy in Brooklyn just as easily you can sell to the guy in Passaic. So once you're selling it, you can sell to this guy. When there's a svara to say that the sale has to be dachuf, it has to be quickly, because he may not get a chance. In other words, right now the meicher has a chance to buy something next to him, and he's selling this field, but it's going to take the guy in Brooklyn longer to get the things taken care of than the guy in Passaic. So then there's no dinner in my mitzvah, because there's a sisa v'yeshav tov to the meicher as well. We don't only look at the bar mitzvah, the guy in Brooklyn, as sisa v'yeshav tov. There's sisa v'yeshav tov doing the right thing for the meicher. The meicher has a svara over here. I have a chance to buy a property now. I'm selling this and the property. It's next to you. I can't take that into account. The karga, the head tax, the mezayne, he needs money for food for the wife and his daughters, or the kfura for a mace. In other words, you need instant cash, right? Then less ba mishum dini de mitzvah. Then in these cases, guys, the chachamim did not make the takana. The takana is only made where everything is equal, like I began to share. Everything is equal. It's equal that what? It's not going to cost you anything. That's it. The meicher is not going to cost anything because he can get the same amount of money from the guy in Brooklyn as he can the guy in Passaic in the same period of time without anything. There's no other, everything being equal. For these things, we're going to sell it even without calling out. Calling out would get you more money. We don't have time now. You need money now. For a woman, if someone sells a land to a woman, there's no din by mitzvah. We don't expect the woman has the capability of saying, okay, you just like you bought over here, you can buy somewhere else. We don't say that. Uli asked me the same svaru, uli shutafe. Less by din by mitzvah. Okay, now this would appear to be a din by mitzvah. Rashi, there's a long Rashi telling you not. So here's the case of the next Gemara. Shcheni o'ir v'shcheni sadeh. I have over here that people who's buying the field, right? People, I have a choice now. I could sell this field to someone who lives near me in the town, or someone who has a field next to me that I'm not selling. So shcheni o'ir means I'm selling a field. I'm selling a field. I could sell the field to the shchenim in the city, or shchenim in the sadeh, who have a sadeh next to mine, but I'm not selling that field right now. I'm selling another field. Who do you sell it to? Shcheni o'ir koidmin. The shcheni o'ir come first. Not dinah d'ma mitzvah. Shachin v'talmid chacham. You have a choice to sell it to a shachin, to a talmid chacham. Says the Gemara, talmid chacham koidim. Talmid chacham comes first. Karev v'talmid chacham. You have a chance to sell it to a relative with talmid chacham. Talmid chacham koidim. Iboilahu. Shachin v'karev mai. You have a choice to sell it to a neighbor or to a relative. Tashma toiv shachin karev me'ach rachak. It's better a good shachin, a good neighbor, than a distant relative. So the Chayra is saying you should sell it to the shachin rather than the relative. Now, Hani Zuzi Tavi, but Hani Zuzi Tekule. The guy from Passaic is giving you coins that you can use anywhere. The guy in the Brooklyn, he's giving Zuzi that have a greater weight, whatever that means. Again, we know that the coins in those days had different values based upon weight or usage. Less by mitzvah. In that case, again, things are not equal over here, right? What's the rule? Only when things are equal. Here it's not equal because the guy in Passaic is giving you something that is more useful to you. Coins that can be used anywhere. Hani tsari v'hani shari. The guy in Passaic is giving you coins that are loose and they're easily countable. The guy in Brooklyn is giving you coins that are tied up. You have to open it up. The guy can tie in, and maybe you lost some. In other words, again, this is a perfect example of all things not being equal. And therefore, if he's giving you coins that are tied up, and the other one's giving you coins that are loose, even though he's a Passaic, less by Mishum Dina Diva Mitzvah. Omre Esel ve'etra fa'isi zuzeh. The guy in Brooklyn says, listen, I'm going to trouble myself and go get money. Lay not trinale, you don't have to wait. If the guy in Passaic has money available, again, things aren't equal, you don't say the Dina Diva Mitzvah. He doesn't say, I'll trouble myself to get the money, but the guy in Brooklyn says, I'll go get the money. Chazina, if he's a rich guy, the Asal Maisi Suze who can go get the money, not Trinale will wait. He laughed, but if he's not a rich guy, not Trinale. Even though they didn't say the lesson of Tircha, we won't wait. So guys, you see that the din of the mitzvah are very, very finite. It's again, once a little bit is off and all things are not being equal, we don't say the din of bar mitzvah. So you have a land, it belongs to one person, and on the land is a house that belongs to another person. Now, this is a shtickle, like it's not dini by mitzvah, but it's close, meaning who can force the other person. So I own land, you own the house. What's the din? Mari ara ma'akiv amari bate. If the owner of the land, I can stop the guy. If I want to buy the house, I would get first dibs on the house. I could, if you want to sell your house, it's on my land, I would get first dibs on the house. However, Mari Bate, Mari Da'ara. If the guy who owns the land wants to sell his land, the guy in the house is tough luck. He cannot go ahead and stop it. Ara Dechad, B'dikla Dechad. A person owns a piece of land and another person has a decal, a palm tree on that piece of land for either there for a set amount of time or until it dries out. Mari Da'ara Matzi Ma'akiv and Mari Dikla. If the guy wants to sell his palm trees, the person who owns the land can stop him. Mari Dikla Matzi Ma'akiv and Mari Da'ara, but the one who owns the palm tree cannot sell the person who owns the land from selling the land. Ara Lebati va'ara Lezara. Now, the guy in Passaic, he wants to buy that. The guy in Passaic wants to buy the land to build a house on the land. The guy in Brooklyn wants to buy the house and the land in Brooklyn to go ahead and farm it. Right? Okay, so again, The classic din of Metzia would say it goes to the guy in Brooklyn. But over here, the guy in Passaic does not want to go ahead and farm the land. He wants to buy the land in order to go ahead and build on it. Who comes first? Says the Gemara, Yishuv Adif. Settling Eretz Yisrael is more. The Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, I guess, it doesn't say Eretz Yisrael. Yishuv Adif takes precedent over planting. And therefore, the guy in Passaic would get first dibs. The last pay Mishum Din by Mitzvah, you won't have the Din by Mitzvah. Okay, now you have two lands, two fields in Brooklyn, and Afsik Mishunisa, there's a bunch of rocks coming out like shane, like teeth. A Yirichva de Dikla, or a bunch of a hedge of palm trees, right? Chazina, Im Yachalahach Nispa Filut Lamechad. Guess what's the purpose, guys, of Din by Mitzvah? If you have two lands and you're cultivating the land, you'll be able to get one big parcel of land. So over here, you don't have one big parcel because it's being blocked. However, if you're able to get one tlem from one field to the next, you'd have the din of mitzvah. If it's so close, the rocks are so in close proximity, or the trees are in so close proximity that you're unable to get a tlem, a furrow, then less permission din of mitzvah, and therefore you would not be forced to go ahead and make that sale. Hani dala b'nei mitzrani, you have 4 people owning on 4 sides. The Kodem Chaminaya B'Zavin, one of them went ahead and bought the field. Then Zvini, it's a good sale. The Ikula Asa B'Hadidad, if they all come at the same time, then what? Halgalo B'Karnizil. You'll go ahead and divide it in quadrants. If you look at Rashi's picture, so if you Rashi's last words, the Lashon Karnizil, Zil Bo Lekranis, the sale for the kronos, for the corners. So each one would get this quadrant, this quadrant, this quadrant, and this quadrant of the field.